What's going on, everyone? So, the D'Angelo Russell situation is one that is going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. D'Angelo Russell currently has all the leverage, all of the control as far as his contract goes and what he can do and whether he stays with the Lakers or leaves the Lakers. Best case scenario is that he opts in and the Lakers now have control. They can either trade him or work with him to kind of find a destination in which best suits him, or kind of ride with him momentarily until they get to maybe the trade deadline or find a better trade, or even keep him depending on how things shape up, right? Like, let's say they go and land a Donovan Mitchell or something, right? Well, maybe they can keep D'Lo and have him kind of be the two guard or even the point guard and let Donovan Mitchell play the two guard. He kind of work that out with D'Lo's ability to play off ball. I mean, he had an incredible season, historically great, really. Again, once you got to the playoffs, you had your struggles, you had your concerns, you had your issues, you saw the inconsistencies once again. Although he was better than he was in the previous go-around, he still wasn't exactly what we needed. But if he's like your fourth option now or fifth option, right, to where, on any given night he can be your third or fourth, but if you're not so reliant on D'Angelo Russell, right, maybe that changes a lot. Right? Like, imagine if D'Lo had the season that he had last year, but you had a guy like a Donovan Mitchell, right? Or in this Denver series, like, let's say you had a Donovan, again, just using Donovan as an example, because I do believe the Lakers are genuinely going to go star chasing. If you get a guy like Trae Young, that doesn't really make sense. But if you get, like I said, a Donovan who he's having like an all defensive type season to where he can be a point of attack, play some defense, right? Kind of play alongside D'Lo's ability to make plays. So, Donovan could play off ball, D'Lo could play off ball, kind of have that nice balance. You could always have one of them in the game. Right? Again, just spitballing here. But again, if D'Lo is kind of shifted to being your fourth guy behind LeBron, AD, and whoever else it is, well, now D'Lo and his inabilities at times are not as, much of a hindrance. They don't hurt the Lakers as much as they do when it's like, hey, we need you to be our third guy. We need you to be our third best player night in and night out, game in and game out. And if you have a bad night, we're probably not winning, right? So now if he is, again, let's say you had Donovan Mitchell in that Denver series. Lakers are probably still playing Denver right now, or maybe even win that series. Because the two games in which D'Lo balled out, or 2.5 games in which D'Lo balled out and played well, you're winning those games because now he's the fourth guy. And in the games where he was bad, those games are still close. And if you had that third guy that showed up, it changes the game entirely. Rather than like, oh, D'Lo didn't show up, Austin Reeves was bad, and Rui Hachimura was non-existent. Right? If you just had that one other guy that showed up, it's like whatever else you're getting from anybody else is just icing on the cake. So now D'Lo isn't, the pressure isn't as high on D'Lo, so maybe he can perform better, right? Like, he's not asked to do as much. It's just something to keep in mind. But regardless, the Lakers need to figure out the D'Lo scenario. And I don't mind bringing him back. I know some people are basically like, just get rid of him. He's trash. He's done, right? Like, and I get it. Like, people are upset. It's frustrating. Once again, you saw another playoff series. But again, it's not all on D'Lo. It's just we expect D'Lo to be a star. We needed him to be a star. But he's not. He is a role player. And so, again, if he's a complimentary role player rather than we need him to be basically our third star or our third best player, then I do think it changes things. And, it all comes down to value. But also, if he's on an $18.5 million expiring contract, well, then that has value even at the trade deadline. So, again, let's say you go get a Donovan Mitchell. You kind of run it, see how it looks, right? See what's available come the trade deadline. If there's something that's there that maybe makes more sense, because there are concerns of like, well, what if D'Lo doesn't show up again? Well, then you can make that move, make those changes, make those adjustments, and then now you're, kind of revamped and ready for your playoff run. If not, then it's not a big deal. It's like, okay, you still have D'Angelo Russell, right? He's now, we're going into the playoffs. He's the fourth option now, and now you're not as concerned with him having a bad series or a bad game or, being game to game. Like, what D'Lo are we going to get today? It's like the games in which he balls out, you're definitely winning. And the games in which he doesn't and has his struggles, you probably still have a good chance to win those games. Again, it just depends on the pieces that are around him. Depends on the team that you've structured. It also depends on, LeBron James and Anthony Davis, how well they perform. Who's that third guy? Do you get that more consistent third guy? Even if it's not, like, let's say you just go get like a DeJounte Murray and a Clint Capella, right? And you're running, Murray, D'Lo, LeBron, AD, and Capella, right? Well, okay, now D'Lo, again, he would be the fourth guy, right? And even at times, like, Capella can go give you, 10 on any given night plus, right? If D'Lo in his two-man game with like a Jackson Hayes and Anthony Davis was excellent. Imagine if he had a Clint Capella. Again, just kind of using examples. But, it depends on the lineup and the structure of this team. Plus, D'Lo, he has chemistry. He has shown that he can play off of LeBron James. He can play alongside LeBron James. He can play alongside another ball handler like a Spencer Dinwiddie, a Gabe Vincent, and Austin Reeves. I mean, how many times did, the Lakers just have everybody else handling the basketball besides D'Angelo Russell, when D'Angelo Russell is our best playmaker, not named LeBron James, which that was frustrating at times. Another thing is, like, if you get a more competent coach, right, you get a coach that's better at understanding things, does that new coach kind of put D'Lo in better position to have better success and maybe build more confidence in him, and he continued to improve? Also, you saw the improvements from year one with the Lakers to this year. I mean, I guess you could say half the season with the Lakers to this year. He was much more confident. He was much more efficient. He had, I mean, by every stretch of the imagination, he had a excellent season. Excellent. But then it's like, well, I don't care what you do in the regular season. What did you do in the playoffs? And, he was only good for 2.5 out of the 5 games. And it's like, we needed you to be better in all of the games, not just 2.5 games or, 3 games where he was okay, right? However you want to base it, right? So I think it could depend on the circumstances, but the Lakers can't just let D'Lo go. I mean, they can, but it hurts them, right? It's not like you let D'Lo go and all of a sudden the Lakers have a bunch of money. It's not like you let D'Lo go and it's like, oh, well, the Lakers have $18.5 million, right? Or I think it's $18.7 million. But it's like, oh, like if that was the case, then sure, right? Because then it's like, okay, well, we could go like $18 million. We could go sign Royce O'Neal and Valanciunas for that price, right? Now we got a legit center and a 2-guard to fill it, and then go make a trade for whoever. Right, let's say you do go trade for Trae Young, right? Imagine Trae Young, Royce O'Neal, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Valanciunas. It's like, oh man, here we go, let's go, right? Like, but unfortunately, that's not the case. That's not the scenario, right? Unfortunately, we are kind of handcuffed to D'Lo right now, and we are a team that still wants to contend. We are a team that still wants to be good. We are a team that still wants to try to win an NBA championship, and you can't just let a guy who he still gave you production. He still was good at the game of basketball for you. He still gave you some level of play in that Denver series. Again, it wasn't what we needed to ultimately win, but it's like he's still an asset that could be of value that you could even potentially trade come the trade deadline. Maybe you're even working something out to where you're signing him to a new deal that's similar to the last one. Maybe you're doing a 1+1. Right, and maybe you're paying him a little more, right? Maybe you're like, hey, we'll give you 2 years, $40 million. Same thing though, you're waiving. You kind of go the JJ Redick rule, where it's like, hey, we're gonna kind of up you so we can kind of use you for a trade, but you're gonna get paid more than you would everywhere else, right? But that also is what it ultimately boils down to. What is the market for D'Angelo Russell? Now there is talk, primarily from Brian Windhorst, which, I mean, he's almost never right when it comes to the Lakers. I can't even think of the last time he was actually correct about something, but nonetheless, right? Brian Windhorst, he said that D'Angelo Russell is expected to opt out and, look for greener pastures, but I don't necessarily see that being the case. If anything, he'll probably do what most players do in this situation, which is like go to the team and go, hey, Orlando wants me, but, let's work out some type of deal to where I can opt in. They don't want to pay me $18 million, so I'll opt in, go trade me to Orlando, and then I'll work out a new contract with them and maybe do another extension, 3 years, 45 million or something like that. But at least I get a little more money now rather than long term, right? They kind of work something out in that regard. Or if like that's like the market is just, let's say, is 17 or 15 million, right? Again, he could just say, all right, let me just stay with the Lakers. They're probably going to trade me, but at least I'm getting paid, right? At least I'm making some money. And then, I'll ride out the year. If I end up on a team I don't want to be on, then I'll figure it out in free agency and then go get that 15 million or whatever that teams are offering me. Right? It's just depends on how things shape up. What does the market look like for D'Lo? But I just don't see a bunch of teams lining up to pay D'Lo a bunch of money. I don't see a bunch of teams lining up to give D'Lo 22 to 25 million a year. I mean, again, maybe you get a situation where a team needs to spend some money and they're like, like we could sign D'Lo for a year for 20 million, kind of go the Bruce Brown route where it's like, let's just give D'Lo 20 million. If he's great for us, great. If we kind of need to trade him or whatever for maybe something potentially down the road. Like let's say, I don't know, the Sixers. Let's say the Sixers miss out on any potential stars or any potential upgrades, right? They need to kind of spend some money. Do they just go, hey, let's sign D'Lo to 20 million and then, at least like he's a guy that could play off ball, could play on ball, play alongside Maxey, just kind of run him, see what he looks like. If it doesn't work, we just let him go in the offseason. He's kind of just a placeholder. If it does work, great. And then even if something better comes along, like let's say a star does become available that we could potentially trade for, well, now we have that $20 million expiring salary because they're going to lose Tobias Harris and stuff. So it's just kind of a thought, right? Right? Like let's say they miss out on like a Paul George, just a team that came to mind in the middle of this discussion. But nonetheless, I do. I think the Lakers, you got to keep him. If you can't find a trade, right? Ideally, if you can upgrade, right? Like that's always been my statement, right? Because I know some people will say like, oh, well, you wanted to keep D'Lo and trade Reeves and stuff like. Well, yeah, I'm not against. Like to me, DeJounte Murray, right? For example. They wanted Austin Reeves not better than DeJounte Murray. If you could flip Austin Reeves into DeJounte Murray and keep D'Lo, who was having a historically great season, why wouldn't you do that? Right? I was never against trading D'Angelo Russell. It's just, what is the return? Right? If we're making a lateral movement, like there was talks about trading him for like Colin Sexton or, Tyus Jones. Like that doesn't make sense. D'Lo's better than those guys. Right? So it's like, no, like something like that, then no. But if you can get a clear upgrade, again, like I wasn't against the Lakers trading D'Angelo Russell for DeJounte Murray. Do it. But they didn't want DeJounte Murray. They wanted Austin Reeves. So to me, it was like, it's a no-brainer. And then you still have D'Lo. You can go find another trade for D'Lo, or you keep him and see if he can continue to play great. And again, if he's the fourth option, what does that look like in the playoffs? The pressure isn't as high, right? You probably win those games that D'Lo had good games in, right? So, because now you have a DeJounte Murray who's your third guy rather than D'Lo and then Reeves who's your fourth. So it's things like that can be the difference and go a long way. But it's going to be interesting. I think ultimately, like you gotta try to keep D'Lo if you can. Obviously if you can find a trade that makes sense, then you do it. Find a trade that makes sense, but you can't lose him for nothing, right? Even if you have to kind of slightly overpay him and do a 1+1 again, right? And he waives his trade clause and it's like, we have to give him 20 million, like then fine, do that, right? Obviously you need to stay within the parameters of the taxes and stuff like that so that way you can actually make trades and things like that. But we'll see. Like the luxury tax is a real thing. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? What do you think the Lakers should do about D'Angelo Russell? Do you think that they should keep him? Do you think no, you got to get rid of him? Do you think like again, just you can't just lose him for nothing, so keep him, but then work out to potentially trade him. Again, how do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.